All right, part 3 on the slab box. Starting to add in feet to your design. So now you can see my box is set up long enough that it's holding its shape. Still could use a little bit of finishing touches, smoothing out a couple areas. If there's an area where you have a bit of a concave or like a missing chunk, you can take a piece of clay, just a small little piece, and sort of fit it in there and blend that piece right out. So it blends, fits a little bit better, and then sharpen up the corners, making sure that you're getting a nice 45-degree right angle into it. So that would be the base and the two sides. Now for demo purposes, I'm just gonna go with more of geometric kind of designs, and I want to add in a nice little feet to my base. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use some of these extra little squares that I had, that I cut. So I'm gonna create small little feet that can go into each one of the corners. And I have given these a little bit of time to sort of set up to make them easier to work with, and they're all about the same size. Now, if you kind of feel like it warped a little, you can take the piece and just tap it right onto your placemat just to tighten those edges up and make sure that they're all about the same size. And you do want to make sure that they're all the same thickness so you don't have any wobbling going on onto your piece. So then I'm going to go ahead and slip and score. Now to do this, to make sure I don't have extra score marks to clean up later on, I just take my feet and I put little marks down, just blocking out where the square is going to go, and I'm lightly going over it with my pin tool. So I got a little bit of an area that I know I'm going to add some scoring into. Just lightly placing it, kind of like a dry fit here. All right, so now I've got my bottoms kind of worked out where I'm going to put my feet, and then I can take my fork and do some score lines this way, or you could use your pin tool and just stay within those little squares. That way you don't have anything to clean up later on. And I'm just going to grab my pin tool and deepen that up, roughen it so that the slip has a place to kind of settle into. Just roughening that up. Okay, same thing with the small feet. Choose one of the sides and just scoring. You would do that with each one. And this is the last one here. Okay, so now I'd be ready to start adding my slip. So I'm just grabbing my slip container. Dip your finger into it, or you can use your brush, whatever you like to do. And I'm just going to bring that right over to my piece. A healthy amount of slip so it fits into those gaps. And then I know for sure the two pieces are joined together nicely. I'm going to add it into the feet themselves. And then take this piece right over. And you want to push down. You'll see the slip kind of coming out the edges. That's okay. Take the extra and sort of blend it out. And some people like to give it a little wiggle, you know, really make sure it's nice and stuck. You just want to make sure that you don't change the thickness of the foot so you don't get a wobble later on. Add some slip onto here. Bring that foot right over. Medium pressure, just pushing it down. I want to make sure I'm getting right up to the edge of my wall. Just sticking that in. Next one. Medium pressure. And I'm just blending the extra slip out. There we go. And then my last little area, I want to make sure that they're equally spaced. Medium pressure, squishing that extra bit of clay or slip out, going right up to the edge so everything matches up. Getting my finger right along and blending, blending, blending. There we go. So that would be the 4 feet. And I'm just going to clean off my hand here a second. That would be my 4 feet. Now to test so that it doesn't wiggle too much, I can flip the whole thing over and just medium pressure again. If any extra slip sort of comes out the sides, just make sure you blend it in. Now it's really important for me and for my design to make sure that all the corners are matching up and everything is looking pretty good. Okay, so they're attached nicely. I was able to pick it up and flip it one more time. Now for drying, I do want to leave this upside down to dry so that the feet have a chance to kind of set up. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. My lid, I've got my coil for the inside that's slipped and scored on. Now I still need to figure out what I wanted to do for my handle. Now for demo purposes, I'm going a little bit quick with this. I would normally allow this to set up longer into the air just to firm up. But for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and keep working with it. I think for my handle, I wanted to go on with that square geometric shape. And I kind of like the idea of having a diamond coming up. I think what I'm going to do though is grab my pin tool and I'm going to actually cut this extra square that I had into more of a triangle shape. So it still goes on with that man-made geometric shapes. I'm going to attach it kind of like this. I'm going to turn it so you can see in the camera. And I want to find a nice little center spot. And same thing I've done before, I'm going to go ahead and clean off my clay, trying to get as free of fingerprints before I bring it onto the lid as I possibly can. Now this one has some craggly little marks on the side, so I could take some of my clay and meld that together and blend it. So I'm hiding where it wasn't exactly perfectly even. So I'm just taking little patches of clay and blending that out. I don't want to change the shape too much. I just want to fill in some of those pieces. Redefine my edges. And you can see I'm just tapping it right onto the placemat here. So I'm getting those crisp, sharp edges. All right, looks pretty good. So then now I could decide which way do I want it. Do I want it diagonal going across from corner to corner, or do I want it more horizontal going across? I think for this design, it would be a little more interesting to follow this diagonal line from this corner to this corner, just like that. And just like I did with the feet, I'm going to go ahead and lightly follow my shape, just giving me marks where I'm going to add in my score. So when I lift it, I've got a little area that I know I'm going to score into and roughen that up. Okay, and same thing with this bottom. Doing little hashtag types of marks. Dipping into my slip container just with my finger and bringing that slip right over. It goes up onto the sides. You can just bring that back down. And same thing right onto the lid. So now I'd be ready to attach the two pieces. And because I got a coil on this side, I don't want to push down without supporting the other side. So I'm just taking my hand and kind of supporting the inside of the rim and squishing the two pieces together. The slip is going to squish out the sides, but you're just going to take your finger, get right in there, and even that slip right out. Bring my fingers right down the sides and maybe reposition it. Now that one last little area that I added in is a little hard for me to get into, and that's where one of these tools comes in handy, where I can take it right up to the side and sort of blend and hide where the two pieces of clay came together. I'm just going to work that tool in and blend that slip out very carefully. Okay, so this is attached really well. I'm not going to go ahead and test it because everything is still pretty wet. Make sure that's attached nicely. And then my last step would be just to take my sponge and just hide those last little fingerprint marks and smooth that all out. So I'm just kind of rubbing it back and forth. And then I would let this sit up into the air and harden. I don't want to put it onto my box yet. Otherwise, I'm going to get some warping happening on the top here. So I'm just going to let my box set up, let my lid set up. I do want to make sure nothing shifted too badly when I was adding in the handle. So I'm just going to make sure that it fits the box and everything is kind of lining up nicely. You can see I'm bringing it out so it re-matches that 45-degree angle. And if something did shift, you can just take your fingers and sort of play with it to get that shape back. Okay, so that would be my lid. My base, oh, I got a chunk of clay attached to this foot as I was moving stuff around. So I want to go in and get that off. And because it kind of landed on a chunk of clay, I might have to rebuild this one little section so that it doesn't have a wobble in the end. I'm just going to take a little chunk of clay and rebuild that up, blending it together. Lesson learned. Don't want to flip it over, even for the camera. Why there's little schnibbly bits of clay on your plastic or on your placeholder here. Because you gotta fix that. Otherwise it would end up wobbling pretty bad. Here I could take my tool and I'm just blending down this edge. Okay. So I would continue kind of playing around with this. And then when I'm all done, let it set up in the air at least for a half hour just to firm up a little further, especially for this lid that I quickly did here. All right, as always, any questions for me, please let me know and I will be around to help you. Thank you. Bye-bye.